Good evening and welcome, folks of Pathlight Thrive Hive, if indeed that is where you are watching from. Some people watch this on YouTube, so hello YouTube people as well. For those that don't know me, I'm Paul Wolstenholme. I am a mental health first aid instructor and a psychotherapist in training, and I also do workplace wellbeing and personal and family coaching. And Pathlight Thrive Hive is this lovely Facebook group that I set up at the beginning of the pandemic, and we do lots of lovely stuff around wellbeing and mental health and personal development and all sorts of stuff like that. And this evening we have a special guest. Sarah Louise Burton is here for, I think it's her third visit to the Hive. And this evening we're going to be talking about purpose. How do you find your purpose? What does purpose mean? And we'll get into that very shortly. But first of all, if you would like to share the Hive with your friends, and please do so. Invite people along, share the group link on your Facebook wall, whatever you want to do. The more the merrier. And if you are enjoying it and finding some benefit from it, you might want to buymeacoffee.com. So you can do that by going to buymeacoffee.com and send me some denomination of coffee currency, or you can subscribe for £7 a month for some extra benefits and extra supports as well. So thank you to all the people who've done that already. As usual, if you have any questions for Sarah as we go through, or any just comments, anything you want to share with us, then feel free to do so in the comments box underneath this video. And if you go to that little link that's scrolling across the screen at the moment, streamyard.com/Facebook, we will be able to see your name and your little picture as you are doing your comments. You don't have to if you don't want to, but otherwise we will just see Facebook user, so we won't know who it is making the comments. Okay, so we'll see how we get on. And once again, welcome to the Hive, Sarah, for your third visit, I think, isn't it?
Hello, Paul.
So thank you very much for being here once again and sharing your time and insight with us.
Nice to be back.
So, would you like to introduce yourself a little bit? Just say a bit about your background for people that don't know you, Sarah.
That's a real. I always get stuck on that one, Paul. My name's Sarah. I have a self-development program for children and adults called the Gratitude Program, and also I'm a trained yoga teacher, and I've looked into various different facets of the mind, and at the moment I'm just working on a book which is called The Knowing Within, which will be finished very shortly. Yay!
Excellent. Yeah, so soon to be published author.
Yes, very exciting.
Excellent. So since we last spoke, I don't know if we might have been in the middle of lockdown number 1 the last time we spoke, or maybe my memory's not super good, but how's it been for you, and how are you coping with this new lockdown in England?
Good. I think this one feels very different than the first one. I think people are, in the main, more relaxed. I don't think there's that tension of the first one. And I think people are being a little bit more fluid in that I don't think we have the same fear factor in this one as we've had maybe in the first one. It may be that other people disagree, but from my experience of this, I don't think we are as fearful, which is nice to see. I still think it's having an impact on people in that they're feeling quite restricted. I'm seeing a lot of that, and that's why, when you and I spoke about what we should be really sharing with people, I think purpose is something that keeps coming up with people that I'm speaking to a lot. What's my purpose? People who maybe aren't working in their industry are feeling quite lost. People who maybe have lost jobs. I know the wedding industry's had a particularly bad hit, and a lot of people from that industry are finding it difficult. So they feel like they've lost a purpose. And so I think it's important to really revisit purpose regularly on an individual level and see what it really means to us, and each person will be different. But if we unpick it a little bit, I think we will see that for most people it is kind of the same, in that, and this is my belief again, your purpose is to be the best version of you, and that's it. And for many people, they say, well, I'm not, I haven't, I'm not a lawyer, or I'm not something, high flying, and they feel that that makes them almost redundant and have no purpose. But in any moment, and this is one thing, I've really found this as I've examined things over the years, your purpose is your next best thing. And it doesn't have to be a huge thing. You don't have to set the world on fire. You don't need to be earning £5 million a year. You don't need to do anything other than be the best version of you that you can be in that moment. And that is, you determine that. It's not determined by other people. I don't think that's a fair. I think it's a generalisation when people say you're not effective, or you're not. People aren't walking in your shoes, and I think we need to start being a bit gentler to each other, but more importantly to ourselves, about how we determine, because we can sometimes be our own worst enemy, how we determine how effective we're being in our lives. We don't know. We could have this conversation today, couldn't we? And it only needs one person for it to be affected. And that one person be a person who maybe has a family. And we may give that one person a little bit of hope. And that hope then transfers to that family. And that family then go out into the world and they do their next best thing. And when you look at it from that perspective, your one action could actually change the world. And that, to me, is highly effective. That is a purpose. You have changed the world with one action. And you don't even know it. You may be wandering around. That may be you've done your next best thing, but you've changed the potential as well in other people. And I think now, with lockdown, I think this is a really key point for us to, we're not able to socialise in the same way, but we can still look out for each other. We can still be pleasant. We can still be our kindest version of ourselves. And I think that in itself would have a massive impact on our communities, on our own personal well-being, on the mental health situation in society at the moment. If we were just our next moment with the kindest version of ourselves. I don't know what you think about that, Paul. What do you?
Yeah, I like the way you positioned that, Sarah, as firstly as purpose being an internal job. It isn't about what other people think about us and how others may deem success with a six-figure salary or whatever it is, and just doing our next best thing. So it may be, as an extension of what you're saying, that we can wake up each morning and just set ourselves an intention of, right, today I'm going to set it to be my purpose to help someone else, or to really get on with writing that book that I've been meaning to write for ages, whatever it is.
A good point there, Paul. Yeah, absolutely. And I think, as a mom, like I said about the book, it should have been done. Air quotes. I don't know. It should have been, in my head, it should have been done by now. But then I have a family and they have needs, and I've had to make decisions as to what is my next best thing, my next most effective thing. And at times I've had to put the book to one side and think, right now, my son may be finding school a little bit difficult, or my daughter, who's a singer, may be struggling with the fact that her industry has literally come to a standstill right now. or, you know, that we as a family maybe need to gather ourselves a little bit and just check in with everybody and make sure everybody's okay. That I have found that keeps, you know, that keeps occurring on a regular basis. So my next best thing is to deal with what's in front of me and be a little bit more, I suppose, gentler with me, gentler with my expectations of me, and not to judge myself on the basis of anybody else's time frame or anybody, like you said before, anybody's expectations. I am doing my next best thing, the best I can in every moment. And I think a great part of this is also about the amount of presence you bring to every role. Being present is really key, because a lot of our expectations are historical, where we have been told we should be something, or we've been labelled as something, and we either believe it's true or we're trying to fight that label. And so I think it's important for us to, the more present we are in every task and with every person that we communicate with and interact with, we afford ourselves more space to do the next right thing. And maybe, and I know people are finding this difficult, and I'm not in any way making light of the situation society's in the moment, but maybe this situation is also helping with that, because we can't control what we're doing next week, and we can't control what's going to happen in 3 months, and we can't almost plan our future to the same degree we were able to 12 months ago for many people. So really, what we can do is be present in this moment, set our intention to do the next right thing, and to breathe deeply. That's always a good one. And just let life flow a little bit, and almost surrender to it, rather than feel that we are being compressed, because I know a lot of people have used that word, compressed or depressed. It's, you know, the same thing, feeling very depressed. And I think sometimes depression can occur with our own expectations, us feeling, you know, the individual feeling that they are not doing enough, they're not enough, I'm a failure, I'm not good enough, you know, what will people think of me? And in truth, that doesn't really matter. It doesn't matter. It's somebody else's perception of what you should be doing. And while somebody is watching your life, they're failing to live their own. And I'm a great believer in that. That's one thing I do say to my children, you know, if I am saying to you, Paul, you should be doing this, I am not present in my own life. It's none of my business. And there's a famous saying, isn't there? What other people, I don't know who said it, what other people think of me is none of my business. And at the moment, if we can be present and we can do our next best thing, that is your purpose. End of conversation. And that was a short one, Paul. I'll go now.
You can get back to your book now, Sarah.
But I think what we fail, I mean, I spoke to a young girl the other day. She's a fabulous young girl, struggling. You know, I've got no purpose. And I said to her, life is a jigsaw, and there's only one piece, your shape. You are the only, there's a hole there, and you're that shape. Nobody else is. Nobody else is going to be that shape. You are. And if you are the best you can be, and that doesn't mean the best at things in a competitive sense, the best you can be in that moment, what more can we ask? What more can the world ask from you? And if you weren't there, all those other pieces cannot fill that gap. Do you know, and I think if I could speak to every young person at the moment, because I know a lot of young people are really going through this, the other pieces can't organise themselves to fill that gap. They just can't. It's still going to be there. So there's only one piece that fits that, that fits that particular space, and that is you. And when we understand that more, and we're more truthful with that, and we accept that and accept ourselves, and we're gentle with ourselves, and we think, I'm doing my best, because it doesn't necessarily tie in with someone else's narrative, doesn't mean it's not my best. I think we surrender then to who we are, and we're able to really examine what our gifts and purpose is really in truth. Because we're kind of forced, sometimes squashed into these little sections. And I remember when I was younger, and the children were younger, and you go to groups, and this is not this is not saying that this is a bad thing. This is obviously down to how I felt at the time. But I took the children sometimes to a play group, and I felt like they weren't walking as quickly as other people's children, or they weren't. Especially my son, who had hearing difficulties, wasn't speaking very well, and all these other children were really verbal, and he was really quiet, and he couldn't stand people touching him. He didn't like anybody interacting, so he didn't play in the same way. And I started to examine how it was making me feel, because it was making me feel like I wasn't a very good mum. Like I wasn't doing a very good job, because everybody else seemed to be doing a better job. Their children were, seemed to be more advanced than mine. But then one day I watched it, and I realised that they were my restrictions on him. I was trying to force him almost to be something he wasn't at that time. And so the minute I surrendered to that and thought, I cannot force this child to be anything other than he is, and I love him absolutely exactly as he is, he's perfect as he is, we both grew together, because I was present with who he was at that time. I wasn't trying to make him somebody else. I didn't have the need to compete with other parents, other children. I didn't have a need to support, almost, you get the little red book. He was way off the little red book graph. He was nowhere near. And I used that at one point to actually beat myself up, that he wasn't any of the things in the little red book. And then one day I put the book down. And I thought, that is unhealthy for me. I'm not saying for everybody, but for me that was very unhealthy. And I completely changed my parenting style. And I thought, right, what does he need right now? He doesn't speak very well, but we can, and obviously his hearing was out, so we could work on his balance. We could play games that worked on his balance, and we could set little sort of, I want to say, challenges that made him a little bit stronger every day. But it was his stronger, not based on what other children were doing. And that was a really big lesson for me. And I think I've said this to you before about Amber, when I realised that I was saying to Amber, why don't you, when she went to sing, why don't you wear this? I was then almost changing her purpose, because her purpose is to be the best version of herself that she can possibly be, and she does that amazingly well. And she really does not need my help to be the best version of herself. So as a parent, rather than force the narrative, I found that the easiest way to parent is, yes, keep boundaries in place for them to keep them safe, but let them be themselves. Let them show me who they are. And I think another thing with purpose is, that's very important. You've got to bring yourself to life. Every moment of life, it's about you living your life, not living somebody else's, not living someone else's description of what your life should be. It's your life. You live it. Be present in it. Enjoy it. Relax with it. It's not a race. It's not a competition. You are perfect exactly as you are. Whether, you know, stop judging yourself based on any labels that other people give to you, because you will not be able to fulfill them. You just won't, because it's only perspective. And people cannot be what other people want them to be, because that's very conditional. And I think we have to step back and almost love each other unconditionally for being the best version of ourselves. And, you know, I said this before, my greatest teacher have always been my children, and I know you've said that as well. You know, we've had this conversation before about that, and I feel blessed to have learned the lessons very quickly, like the teacher, because they do like you to learn very quickly. But when I look at them now, and they're very different, they're perfectly different. They're not supposed to be, and God forbid that they ever would be, a carbon copy of me or my previous restrictive expectation. They broke that mold a long time ago, and in breaking that and being themselves and the best version of themselves that they can be, they've taught me so much. They've taught me so much about how to live life, how to surrender to the moment, how to be different, and it's great to be different, and how, you know, how worry is just your perspective in the moment, really. Almost an expectation of what you think the next moment should be, rather than stepping back and allowing the next moment to show itself. That worry is trying to almost be, well, I suppose in a way, almost like play God. That this is what I expect the next moment to be. But don't. And at the moment, we can't. Can we? We really can't. So if we can ourselves and help our children, our friends, our family, to just be the best version of themselves and support each other with that, and not tell each other that we're doing things wrong. We're doing our best, you know. We're doing our best. Let's just get that. It might not be your best, but it is that individual's best, and we have to honour that sometimes in each other. That we're all at different. We're all in different stages, aren't we? In life, the world is very different than when I was younger, and by that world being different, my reactions to it are different. But somebody who's younger than me, if they are seeing it from a different perspective, they will react to a situation differently than I would, won't they? Because I've got my historical stuff going on in the background, and they will come at it with fresh eyes. It's about being really present and observing how other people react to situations as well. The lockdown, some people will be really, really fearful, really frightened, really scared, almost terrified of what's next. And for some people, you know, they may be in a fortunate position, they may be getting full pay, they may be at home, and they may be enjoying the experience. And you've got the same situation and two different people coming at it completely differently. Each one doing their next best thing. And I think if we can be gentler with each other and understand, we don't have to agree on what we believe is going on at the moment. I know there's completely different camps in this, but I think forcing our opinion on other people is that, it's force. I think other people are entitled to their opinion because they're coming at it from a different perspective. And I think should each person stay true to themselves, be present, and do the next best thing, the purpose of your life will unfold. And sometimes you don't need to know what it is. Sometimes it's a great big secret. It's a big secret, and you may never truly know the purpose of your life. And that doesn't mean that you haven't got one. that means that it could be so profound that you couldn't quantify it. Because you may have touched that many lives during the process of your existence that you couldn't possibly put that into a sentence or a job title or a description or a label, because you've affected that many people. And that, if we all did that, that would be incredible, I think. If we forgot the word, when I say forget the word purpose, it's almost like don't use it as something to hit ourselves with. Does that make sense? If we can understand that our purpose is in this moment, not at the end of a degree course, or not at the end of a life, or not at the end of my, when my children are 21, that's not my, that's not my purpose, or that's just a time frame. My purpose is right now, isn't it? It's in this moment. What can I give in this moment, or what can I share, or how can I be in this moment that is my next best thing? And I think that is, for me, and I think, the space that this has given me as well, and seeing my own expectations, being able to stop myself and say, hang on a minute, so it's not finished. The book's not finished. It's not, you've not failed. It's just not finished in your time frame. Breathe. Your next best thing. That has made a big difference, to how I react to certain things. But I also think, I know a lot of, and somebody very close to me recently felt that they didn't want to be here. And it's not the first story I've heard. And when I say story, it's not the first situation I've heard. And I know a lot of people have felt like this recently because they've felt isolated. And I will just say this, because this is my belief about life, is that life is a tapestry. And if you unpick one stitch, the whole lot will unravel. That's how significant each person is. It's as simple as that. You may think that one stitch is insignificant, but you unpick it, you take it away, and you see the whole of the picture dissolve in front of your eyes, because it was holding everything together. And that's how significant each person is, and how significant individually we are. It doesn't matter about a job. If you're living your purpose, your job is your purpose, and you feel that and you come from your heart every day, fantastic. But not everybody is supposed to have that experience. We're all supposed to be experiencing different things, or else we would be one and the same, wouldn't we? In many ways, we'd all be doing the same things.
Yeah, it comes back to that jigsaw piece analogy that you spoke of earlier, Sarah. And the way I see things is that we all have a unique gift that we bring into this world. And we could call that our purpose, or we could call it our unique expression of ourselves. And yeah, quite often parents, teachers, society, jobs try and smooth off those little lugs on the edge of the jigsaw pieces and force you into a jigsaw that it's not you. And a strong message I'm getting from you is about individualism. So what you've done with your children and what you do in your own life is just be true to yourself and allow others to be true to themselves and bring that gift to the world.
Because I really do believe that that every person has almost like a knowing, a code within them, and it's about finding that code for you. So that doesn't mean, for many people, it's not to do with money. It doesn't drive them. But because society dictates in many ways that you are kind of your only value is what you earn, we can sometimes feel that we are failing at life. But that's not it. That's not the truth of life. Nobody ever says, I was really, really struggling, and Jeff came up and told me he earned £100,000, and it made me feel better today. Did they? Nobody ever said that, but somebody would say, do you know, I was really struggling today, and Jeff came over today and said to me, I'll never give up on you, you're doing an amazing job. Has Jeff got a purpose? Of course he has. And it was just to do the next best thing. That's how I feel sometimes we can get caught up in this anxious state and feel depressed and feel really low because we feel that other people are looking and maybe feeling that we are not doing a good job. But if I went to work in an office every day and the rest of society was saying to me, Sarah, you're really not doing a good job, how do they know? How do they know how effective I am in my job? Somebody else may say she is or she isn't, but that's only other people's perspectives. But if I'm doing my best, and I think that's how we can sometimes feel that other people judge us, but we shouldn't be judged by other people. I think we should learn to enhance the lives of each other. I think it's a skill we are maybe almost being forced into developing again. I think we lost it. I think we found that we were competing. There was a big competition. Life was a competition, and it was whoever got from A to be the fastest. You win at life. But I think for me, if you said to me, how many people would you like to touch in your life and affect positively? And would you change that for a job that pays an infinite amount of money? I know which would give me the greatest satisfaction, and it would be the first. Because I've had experience of both. And I know which one makes me sleep more soundly. And I know which one makes me get up in the morning with a joyful heart. And it's a very, very different thing to feel that you are helping somebody else, to support somebody else. Now, that doesn't mean, because I'm very funny about it, to support somebody else doesn't mean you solve the problem for somebody else. You stand by the side of them and allow them to do life themselves. I think it can be confused sometimes. Sometimes we want to help and we almost disable the other person by our interference. Does that make sense? Mm. But I think if we stand back and we kind of say, I think you've got this. I trust you've got this. But if you haven't and you're struggling, I'm here for you. But I trust that you can solve this on your own. I think that empowers people. And I think now it's about looking at how we can empower others, how we can connect to each other in different ways. You know, I think this that you're doing with the Hive online, even though people are at home, they could connect to it if they wanted to. It's a choice. They can. It's you know, but we're giving people options, and we're still showing that there is a connection there, and that people, you know, that people are cared about and they are important, and their mental health is important, and that their purpose in life, you know, is significant. And the more people we can touch with that, and the more people sort of support that, I think the better society will be. I think society will change massively over the next few years. And I think what we thought was important will show itself to be almost like an illusion, really. And we will go back to who we really are, which is human beings, not human doings. I think that is one thing that we will do over the next few years.
That's a lovely, hopeful message, Sarah, and I agree. I see this kind of raising of consciousness happening, and you know, globally, there's various events in this political sphere going on which point towards that, I think, but also I think it might take a long while to reach the tipping point, but it's a hopeful message. I like that. And I like also the fact that purpose, as we're talking about it today, it doesn't necessarily have to come from your job. It can come from how you are in the world. It can come through relationships, through interactions, through creativity, through volunteering, supporting people. It doesn't have to be a job.
Well, like you said then, it doesn't have to be any one thing. It can be a combination of all those factors. And I mean, art is a great thing, I think, because the thing is, for your purpose is your next best thing. And that, like I said before, that may not be society's view of your next best thing, or your parents or a friend's view or a partner's view of your next best thing, but it is your next best thing. You have to feel it, you have to lean into it. I think art is very subjective. You either like it or you don't. You know, that's why there's so many different variations of what we would lump together as art. But when you look at those pieces of art, they're miles and miles apart, and some people will love one piece and hate another and be dismissive of not, you know, a particular genre of art, and I think that in itself shows us how diverse we are as individuals. So your purpose is, you know, when I say about the best version of you, I don't want to, when I say the best version of you, it doesn't mean that you have to be thinner or taller or different in any way, or faster or stronger, or it's the best version of you in that moment, not your best version of you in 6 months' time. That doesn't mean you don't have aspirations and you don't set intention, but if we do that sometimes and we only look ahead, then we can almost lose life right now, because we're saying, when I'm like that, everything's going to be okay. When I'm like that, I will be like this. Well, what can you be like right now? What's your next best thing right now? Your next best thing right now might be to go and tidy the drawer in the kitchen that's got all, you know, all the wires and old Nokia phones that you've had accumulated through your life. That might be your next best thing. And to somebody else, that might be a horrific thought, and they may think, well, my next best thing is to go for a run, or it's so different. It's not going to be the same for two people, is it?
It's not. And we've had a message. I'm not so sure who this is from, but thank you for the message. So, missed the beginning, but I love this message and the idea that our purpose can change day to day and maybe even moment to moment.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, it's like I had a friend who was talking that she lost a job and she had to go into another job that she felt didn't have the same purpose. So she went into retail, and she felt that her other job had more purpose. And she went into retail, and I said to her one day, you never know, we were talking about this, and I said, but you never know what other people are coming into your establishment with. You just don't know what they're carrying. You know, somebody may have died, they may have lost a job, they may be low, they may have low self-esteem, mental health issues, they may be feeling unwell, someone they love may be unwell. You never know what someone else is carrying. So I'm a great believer in the next best thing is to be gentle with the person in front of you, and to be gentle with them so that they can breathe a little bit. they can breathe a little bit easier. And that seems like a really minor thing in many ways. We kind of dismiss that as an insignificance. But like I said before, we don't know where that person is then going to go. And if we can allow that person to have a little bit more space and breathe a little bit easier and just surrender to that moment in the acceptance of another person, we can change so much for that other person without doing anything. We're just holding the space for them to be themselves. And that's as simple as it is. It really is that simple. And yet we make it so confusing. Because we're human and we like to make things complex and really, really hard work. But I wish someone had told me that when I was younger. I wish someone had said to me, it is that simple. I wouldn't have beaten myself up about as many things. I wouldn't have restricted myself as much or been fearful of even trying something in case I look silly, or I wouldn't be as good as somebody else at it when they'd practiced more times and I was doing it for the first time, and I'd had that really linear expectation of myself. Do you know, now, the other day I was with Amber and she put some music on and she was dancing, and she's a really good dancer, and I'm a mum dancer. You know, mum dancer. I will hold my hands up. I am a mum dancer. I am proud of it. But so she was laughing and I was laughing. But that was who I was in that minute. In my head, at that minute, I thought I was 19. I really did. But she did video it, and when I look back, you know, it was like watching my nan dance. But that's fine. Fine. I am not now going to think, oh my God, I'm never going to dance, to quote George Michael. I'm never going to dance again. Because I did my best and I was having a great time. And I think sometimes we make life so complex that we don't enjoy it. If you dance like a mum, even you, Paul, then dance like a mum. And if you don't, you know, just let go. And I don't mean in a judgmental way, but we do put these like judgments on each other, don't we? You know, Amber laughed and said, you dance like a mum, and I thought, but I am a mum and I am dancing. And I look back and I thought, I did, but I liked watching it. Whereas years ago, I probably would have been like, oh my God, I'll never dance again. I will never dance, because I took life really seriously. And life is, to a degree. But then you have to wonder whether you're making it more scrunchy, don't you?
It's about that judgment thing again, isn't it? So maybe in the past you would have been stung by the judgments of your daughter or anyone else seeing that video, and now you're just comfortable in your own skin. And anyway, guilty feet have got no rhythm, have they?
I mean, George left us with so much, hasn't he, George Michael? So there's so many cliches in a conversation. Because you've got to have faith, Paul, don't forget that. But having said that, joking apart, like George Michael, you do have to have a little bit of faith that everything's going to work out as it should, without your... I think sometimes if we took our kind of ego and we're able to just package it into a box and just enjoy life and say yes to things where our ego would have said no, and to surrender to things where our ego would have said, you can't do that, you won't do that, you'll never be that, you don't look like that, how dare you think you can be that, we would find ourselves, the truth of ourselves, the purpose we are here to share on the world, which is to just be that person without restriction, without thinking, I can't do it, I won't do it, everyone will laugh, I'm not going to be as good, I'm never going to be that thing. How will you know? Really? How do you know today what you will be in a year? How do you know? I think, is it that thing, if you are 1% better, I can't remember the exact figure, but so I'm possibly, it's something like, if you're 1% better every day, and by the end of a year, I think you'd be 3,471% better than when you first started, because it's accumulative. And I think that's what we should be. If you're going to set yourself a target, be 1% better.
1% closer to your true self.
Yes.
Getting rid of that ego. And I just want to come back to something that you said earlier, Sarah, about I wish someone had told me earlier on all of this, how simple life is, just be yourself and don't worry about all that stuff. But I think sometimes, I totally hear that, but I think we very often need to go through that learning ourselves and go through the pain of having that societal pressure. You talked about compression and depression and not being the right jigsaw piece. But I think if we go through that learning and come out the other side and say, actually, yeah, all of that was false. That wasn't me. It hasn't served me. It hasn't served the world. That's, I think, how quite often we embed fundamental learning like that.
Well, I think that's absolutely spot on that we do. I think sometimes it takes a huge experience, and a lot of the time that can be negative, to almost make us unpick who we are. And I think that to me sometimes is avoidable if we had been told. Because if you were younger and you were told that you could be anything, if you set your mind to it and you didn't have any restrictions, you kind of would be unstoppable. I'm not saying you wouldn't make mistakes, but if somebody had said to you, you're going to be different, you're not going to fit because you're not supposed to, because usually when you fit, you are doing just that. You are trying to fit. But you will find your own tribe if you are true to yourself. Relationships will be so much easier because they'll be based on truth, not trying to adjust your shape to fit into other people's narratives. So relationships would ebb and flow. It doesn't mean they wouldn't end, but it means that they wouldn't be as difficult because you would be being the truth of yourself, and you would be able to bring that to a relationship. And a lot of the time, and especially now with social media, I think for young people, there can be almost a narrative which says you have to be like this to be in a relationship like this. Whereas again, every relationship is unique, and so it should be, because you've got two individuals usually who are part of it. And so it will not be like somebody else's on Facebook or Instagram or whatever the other social media platforms are. It just can't be, because you're not the same people. You're not supposed to have the same experiences. You're not supposed to be that. Because if you were supposed to be that, you would be. That's why you're over here, because you're not supposed to be that. It's that simple. Do you know? And yet we don't teach kids this. If you were supposed to be it, you would be. So stop trying to be this instead. It's like trying to say that tree over there and that car over there, and each one trying to be the other. It's absolutely physically impossible. And that is the same for us as human beings. It doesn't mean we can't be inspired by people. I've had lots of people in my life that have inspired me, and that inspiration is a good thing, as long as you don't set out to be that person. That's an important factor. Don't try and replicate somebody else's life, because while you're doing that, you're not living your own. You're over there, aren't you? If your purpose is A to B, you've just gone off to Z. because you're living another person's life, and eventually that will end, and you'll have to come back to yourself anyway. So it's better to get to know yourself and like yourself straight away than have to keep coming back to this person that you can't get away from, really. So we can learn to almost accept ourselves and stop trying to say where you're not good enough, and look at what drives you. When are the days when you get up in the morning, what, you know, with joy in your heart? What are those days, and what is it about those days? Is it because you're having it may be that you love walking, and on a Sunday you jump out of bed because you go for a long walk on Sunday, and that's your happy place. And then the more of those small elements of life that you can string together, the more likely you are to feel joyful most of the time. And I mean, I'm a great believer, you know, it might sound like I'm being quite trite, and I'm a great believer that sadness is as important as happiness. Don't think I'm saying you've got to be happy all the time. Some of my best aha moments have come when I felt really sad. The secret, I feel, is not to run away from sadness or become consumed by it, but is to listen deeply to it. Where does this sadness come from? Why am I feeling so sad? And then you may find that you may be feeling sad because of expectations you had for yourself that haven't worked out, or you may be feeling sad because, and I think that's true of a lot of people at the moment, you know, they've had maybe holidays or certain experiences planned, family get-togethers, weddings, all those things, and they haven't worked out. And it's okay to feel sad. I think sometimes we almost I think sometimes, you know, you get positive quotes on walls and things. I think sometimes that can almost be another instruction, you know. And I find that sometimes quite difficult, because if you're in you're in the depths of a sad episode, which we all get from time to time for various different reasons, somebody telling you to smile or keep calm and carry on, even that can feel like a pressure. I think when somebody's really sad, I think it's important to support somebody, but not expect them to change how they feel in that moment. To let them be that, because for all we know, they may never have had that experience of being allowed to be sad. Do you know what I mean? Because I think some people can say, almost, especially an older generation, where they've had to pretend that they're not. They've had to carry on. But sometimes that sadness is a depth that we need to be in.
Yeah, all feelings are valid, aren't they? And that message of don't cry is quite often because the other person can't hold those feelings and they don't have that compassionate connection. So it comes back to what you were saying earlier about having kindness and compassion for others and also ourselves. And I like what you said, Sarah, about sadness being okay. It's okay to be sad that you're not going to get to see your family on the birthday, or you've missed a holiday, whatever it is, because of lockdown. And yeah, just acknowledge that feeling. And again, going back to something you said earlier about some of the learning, I think you said something like it can come from a negative experience. And I was going to challenge it, and I thought, negative? Well, a difficult experience.
Yeah, and yeah, that's it, yeah.
And that's where you're coming from, I think, with the sadness.
What I mean by that is, I don't think anything is negative or positive. What I'm saying is, we can perceive that. We can think that's a really negative, and then come out the other side of it, and it'd be the best thing that's ever happened to us, because we have grown. And this is one of the things about purpose, is that it's only, I think, if if somebody showed you a film of your life, I think it actually, in fact, there is a film about that. It's A Wonderful Life is quite a good case in point. Is he said that he had no significance. I hope I'm not spoiling this for anyone. It is really, it's not, how many years old is this film? It's also, hopefully I haven't spoiled it for anyone. But you think, you know, the gentleman in it, James Stewart, thinks he's not achieved in life because he's not gone and travelled the world. And yet when he's shown the film of his life almost without him in it, he sees how big a part he was in so many people's lives. And I think if we all were shown that film, we would absolutely fall in love with ourselves. Absolutely. I think if we were shown the impact that we have had on other people, whether that is being a really good friend or being kind to someone that we bumped into in a cafe one day, or just a word of support for somebody that we work with, or just being there and holding the space for other people to explore what's going on for them, then we would absolutely treasure ourselves and each other. And because that is important as well, to see almost every man as you. And I think that's quite a spiritual, in most spiritual texts it does say, you know, and in the book I'm writing at the moment about that, about seeing every man as yourself. And it can be difficult at times to do that. It can be difficult to think, well, you've got a very different opinion to me, so how can you be me? How can I be you and how can you be me? Because I don't agree with what you're saying. But sometimes what that can be is, I feel, is that there's different layers and levels of consciousness. And sometimes you can be that person because you've got the potential within you to be it. Does that make sense? But in that moment, you've chosen not to. So if I was a person who I was witnessing somebody be violent, and I think, well, how can that person be me? Because I'm not that. I have the potential to be that, but I've chosen another way. But I still have that potential to be that person. So that man is me. It's just that I have chosen another way. It doesn't make me better than him or worse than him. It's not about that. It's about seeing every man and recognizing that you have the potential to be it, and giving thanks for the fact that you have chosen another way. And when we're able to do that, I think you can see every person as yourself. I think if you see someone who's fearful and angry, you recognize that you also have the potential to be that, but you've chosen not to be. And maybe then support the person who's fearful and angry. You may not be able to change it, but by accepting the state that they are in, and when I say state, I don't mean that in a negative sense, but accepting the state that they are in as that for them takes the pressure off. I think people only fight back when they feel judged, because they then need to support that narrative, and then it becomes an argument, and then it's forced. And and not everybody will agree with this, but I think sometimes it's better to stand back and allow the person to work it out for themselves. And you can only, as you do your next best thing in life, that's an inspiration to somebody else. You know, if you're inspiring somebody else to do their next best thing, then you are having a massive effect on humanity without even inventing a rocket or, you know, being the captain of industry, because that's not it. That's not the truth of life. And the truth of life is that we grow as a collective, and we evolve and we, you know, humanity becomes a force for good and is a, you know, this collective of incredible, you know, consciousness. And well, I mean, it is anyway, but do you know what I'm saying? That it expands and expands and it becomes more consistently. Whereas I think when we judge and continue to judge each other, we can then put up walls of resistance which hold everybody in a space. Nobody grows then from that constant push and pull of society. And so for me, I feel a purpose is to just be more yourself, and be the more accepting you are of yourself, the more you can accept other people. You don't feel the need to force a narrative.
Yeah, that's very connected to what this person is saying. Again, I'm not sure who sent this in, but thank you. Staying in integrity with myself, and once that penny drops, so much shifts.
Absolutely, that's a good one.
So it feels like the messages I'm getting from you is just do your next best thing all of the time and be true to yourself. And if all of us were just true to ourselves, the misshapen jigsaw pieces as we are, not misshapen, uniquely shaped jigsaw pieces that we are, then we are following our purpose just by being ourselves.
Absolutely. And like you said about the next best thing, being present with that, the more present we are in life, the easier the next best thing is. And that's a huge thing. And I remember when I first ever started to do yoga, I had an amazing yoga teacher, and she used to say, be here now. And I remember sitting and thinking, but I am here now. Why does she keep saying it? But I wasn't at all. I wasn't at all present. But in my head, the fact I was sat on the mat meant that I was there. But really now, I fully understand what that means, which is to be here now, to accept that you're here now, and this is where you're supposed to be. Right now. That's it. Now, years ago when she said that, I would think, well, I am here, but I have got things to do at home, and maybe I should be doing those things. But I understand now. It's taking the time for the penny to drop. But it's about being here now. You are supposed to be. Wherever you are supposed to be there. That doesn't mean you are going to be there in a year, and that doesn't mean you're going to be there in a week. But in that moment that you are here now, what is your next best thing that you can do? That's it.
And if we're fully present and fully aware of our situation, our minds, our emotions, then the Be Here Now, Ram Dass, I'm thinking of the Ram Dass book, and also Eckhart Tolle, The Power of Now. That I feel is a really good way of connecting to our authentic selves and to our purpose, because we can let go of all the overthinking, the noise, the societal pressure.
Absolutely. I think like you say about the authenticity of yourself is a really key element to, and again, success is a bit of a word that I don't really like, but your personal version of success. The more authentic you are, the more of you bring to every situation, the more honest your relationships will be. And sometimes we're frightened to kind of bring ourselves to a relationship because we might have a judgment about ourselves. But that means that all our relationships are not authentic. If we're trying to be something or trying to hide a part of ourselves that we don't like, but it may be the part of ourselves, especially when it's a vulnerable part of ourselves, that the other person falls in love with. they may fall in love with our vulnerability. But oftentimes we're afraid to show that because it's vulnerable. We're open, aren't we? But that is a place of real depth. And I think the more depth we bring and more authenticity we bring to relationships, then the stronger the foundations of those relationships. And the relationships become more, I think we give the other person permission to be vulnerable as well. It's an implied permission that this is accepted, this is okay to be this. Like I said about sadness, it's okay to be this. It's okay to, like you said, every emotion is valid. We feel like happiness is more important than sadness, and yet we tend to grow more when we're sad. Typically, we tend to unpick what's going on more if we really lean into it. I think at this point for us as a collective, support is important for each other, and to really come from the heart rather than the head. Feel what is the next best thing, not think it. Does that make sense? I mean, sometimes we can think about, I'm going to sort that out for that person, but really feel that that's the wrong thing. And the right thing might be, the feeling is right, it might be to just support the person. And if we feel more than we actually think, then we're being really authentic, because we feel things. And I think sometimes we stop ourselves from doing that. We stop ourselves from being compassionate or being vulnerable or being empathetic or being sad. We pretend that we're not that. But the more we can be, the more genuine our relationships will be. And some people will like it, and some people won't. That's fine. We don't need to be. I think if we're trying to be loved by every person all the time, then we're not being authentic, because we're trying to be something that we're not. If we accept that the right people that vibrate on the same level as us, if we're talking about, from an energetic point of view, will be attracted to us, then it stands to reason that people who vibrate on a different level will be almost repelled by us or will repel them. But that's the nature of energy. And we are energetic beings. And, we all vibrate on different levels. And we all vibrate on different levels at different times. And that's as it should be, But I think if we stop trying to be all things to all people and become the truth of ourselves, then everything in life shifts then. You find your purpose by being that. You don't. It finds you. That's what happens.
Like that.
If you don't find your purpose, let it find you.
Yes. Sorry, I'm obscuring half of your face by putting that on the screen there. So, I'm not sure who's sent this in again, but thank you. Actually, I think I know who it is, because it's someone who's done the same training as myself. So in the first lecture of the training in transpersonal psychotherapy, the course leader said, a prime requirement is to be yourself. I felt profound relief. Thank you for sharing your philosophy for life.
That's amazing. See what I mean? It's a relief to be yourself. Just be it. Even if I went out the other day and I looked down and I got odd socks on. And I looked and I thought, my first thought was, what will people think? Well, they'll probably think she's got odd socks on, because it's a fact. It wasn't a judgment, it was an actual fact. I'd put the wrong socks on, well, not the wrong socks, I'd put different socks on, that day. But then, just be it. Be the woman if mum dances and can't put matching socks on. Just be it. I mean, sometimes, I'll be honest, Paul, I don't know how I get through a day, but I do. And I get to the end of it and I think, oh, there, well, you know, that's amazing. I got through another one. But just being this, which is sometimes a ball of chaos, it was just like, but I'm pretty present with that chaos sometimes. But just have to just be it and accept that not everyone's going to like it. Great.
Yeah.
And if they're looking at me and saying that I'm not doing my life right, then they are not looking forward to their own journey. And that makes me sad, that they are not doing that. But it doesn't make me feel any less able to be me. Because I've done that and it doesn't work. It doesn't, honestly, if anybody's listening to this, do not do that, because it does not work if you are trying to support someone else's narrative of your journey. Because it's you everybody's wasting their time then. Step into every day, walk your own path. Every cliche I can possibly throw at you, I'm throwing at you now, Paul. Be the best version of yourself and love yourself for it. Because then your purpose will come knocking at the door. The truth of it, the one that you see, will come knocking at the door, and you won't have even had to go looking for it.
Yeah.
Because you're perfect, and you are perfect exactly as you are. Whatever anybody else says, it's an opinion, a perspective. That's it. And anybody is right.
Yes, I heartily agree with all of those, what you call cliches, but I think they're truisms, actually, aren't they? They're truisms.
I thought, gosh, if I said dance like nobody's watching, that's it, I'm done, I'm not.
Yeah. Okay, so I feel like we're coming towards the end, Sarah, but there's a couple of things I would like to share or ask before we do so. So there's a picture that I used to illustrate this talk on the hive. So I'll just share it now so that people can see it if they haven't already done so. Okay, there we are. Can I make that bigger? Well, there we are. So this is a thing called ikigai, which is a Japanese word, but I've seen this presented in different ways. It is about finding your purpose. So I'll just be curious about what you feel about this. And the idea is that if we combine something that we love at the top there with something that the world needs on the right, something that we can be paid for, and something that we're good at, then we've got our purpose, our ikigai. And anything where it's just kind of overlapping two of them, it might be a passion, a mission, vocation, or a profession, but you need all four to really find your purpose. What do you think of that?
I think if I was looking at it and I had a different mindset, it would be a big ask. Because I would think, you know, I don't know, maybe it's walking. I love walking. But then if it said about your profession, I think if I was in a job I didn't like, or that wasn't giving me any fulfillment, or I didn't feel I was bringing myself truly to it, I'd feel I think that's the recipe for life, imperfection. But I think we're all striving for some point of that. Does that make sense? And that's, I'm reluctant to kind of give a formula for anything other than your next best thing, only because your purpose sometimes maybe, so if I went out in the day and I spoke to a number of different people, for example, and so I went into a supermarket and I helped somebody, and my job was far removed from that, but then I did something else and I helped somebody, and I maybe spoke to someone and seemed to say the right thing to them, and that isn't my, I may lead to a profession, Does that make sense? I think everything leads to something. I think it's the judgment we have to let go of. I think it's, like I say about your particular purpose is variable day upon day. It's never going to be the same. Even if you are in a profession, you are going to come across different people, different situations, different scenarios on a daily basis. So your purpose is to be the best you in that situation. It's to deal with it the best way you possibly can. You know, I know a friend who's got 3 young children, and she said to me, I've got no purpose. I said, you've got to be kidding me, because she's not working. She said, but I've got no purpose. You know, my other friends are out and they're big hitters, and, you know, they're earning a lot of money, and one of them hasn't got children. And my other one, she does, she's really creative. And she said, but I haven't got purpose. And I just couldn't breathe for a minute. And I said to her, you've got 3 children. Why are you looking at what other people's lives are like when you have got so much going on, and your next best thing is to deal with the wants and needs of your children and yourself as well. Don't lose yourself in that. And to keep and juggle all the balls that you're juggling all the time. You know, you're a wife and a mother, and you're an individual. Why not just be that? Just enjoy it. Surrender to it. This is where you are right now, and your children will grow up and they will become older, and life will put you. You are saying that you're always going to be this, but you don't know what experiences you're going to have, and you know, until they get older. You may end up being a teacher, or you may end up doing something completely different. You may end up doing home study. You don't know, but don't judge that right now. Just be. Your purpose is massive. There's 3 little people there that are going to go out into the world and have an effect, and that is down to you. That's, you know, you're their primary carer. Don't in any way negate that. The significance of it. Massive. And you know, there's a lot of people that wouldn't do it as well as you are doing it. So please breathe. Please be yourself. Please stop looking at other people and thinking they're doing life better, because we're all just doing our best. And just enjoy the process. Because my children are older, and you know, I'm looking retrospectively at the age that you are, and I remember how tired I was, you know, and you're doing an amazing job, and your awareness is probably far beyond mine at that, you know, when my children were so little. So you're doing an amazing job. And if we each supported each other and said, you know, you're doing an amazing job. I know, you know, friends who are grandparents, and they support their children and their grandchildren, and that's massive. It's massive. They're supporting other members of humanity. They're having an input on other members of humanity. They're loving other members of humanity. What bigger purpose is there than that? There's not. Just love each other. Do your best. Next best thing. Take the pressure off. Breathe. Don't forget to breathe, because all the rest is pointless if you don't breathe. But breathe and just be that. Just be the best you can be. But that doesn't mean be the best. It's not a competition, because nobody is like you. Nobody's going to be like you. So it's a false, you know, it's like an experiment, isn't it? If you're not comparing like with like, the end result, it doesn't count, does it? So how can you judge on effectiveness of 2 individual human beings when they are both so unique? You cannot.
You don't judge your fish on its ability to climb a tree, and you don't judge your monkey on how well it can swim. And that's comparison is the thief of joy. Mark Twain.
Yeah. So, Paul, I've really enjoyed it.
Yeah, always a pleasure, never a chore. Thank you, Sarah. I did have one more question, but I think you've just answered it already, actually. I was going to hark back to a podcast, one of these live sessions that I did with a chap called Rob Cobbold back in August, about consciousness, conscious evolution. And I asked him, what do you think the purpose of life is? So I think you've kind of answered it already, but just as a kind of nice soundbite to end, what would you say is the purpose of life, maybe collectively as well as individually?
I think, again, I think this changes for people what the purpose of life is. For me, the truth of life is to find the knowing within yourself of who you really are. Enjoy that and have experiences being that. I think by being that, you then affect the collective. Knowingly or unknowingly, you will always affect so many more people in life than you could ever possibly perceive. You just wouldn't, if I, you said, well, throughout your life you have touched the lives of this many people, you wouldn't believe it. You think, no, I haven't. Because in our heads, we think we've affected 10. Do you know, but it's how many interactions you've had and where you have maybe brought joy to somebody, you smile. It's insignificant. It's the nuances of life that are important, that we forget, that we disregard. They are the perfection. They are the significance. The little tiny things that we can't even recognize, that have these enormous ripples that go out into the world. So for me, the truth of life is finding who you really are, stripping away the layers of what people think you should or shouldn't be, and thinking, what brings me joy? What makes me glad to be alive? And how can I bring that more to the world? Because that is my flow state. And if you can operate more from a flow state, you I think really you're experiencing the joy of life more regularly. But for some people, that could just be talking to friends, because you may be a fabulous listener, or you may give great advice, or it can be as simple as that. So I don't want to make it too complex, but I think it's finding the truth of yourself and being that entirely, and not being frightened of that, not being frightened of being the person who may be a slightly strange shape in that jigsaw, because you're supposed to be. You're supposed to be. You're not supposed to be a corner when you're in the centre, and vice versa. You're supposed to be exactly that piece. Be it, enjoy it, experience it, don't judge it, experience all the emotions through it, and you allow other people to do the same. And I think that has a massive effect on the collective. Mm-hmm. The more authentic we are, the more authentic we allow other people to be.
Lovely. So be your authentic self and follow your bliss. Joseph Campbell.
Right. I didn't know that. I'll write that now. Yeah. I think that's it. Yeah. Follow your bliss, and if you can, and don't judge that. It can be, every moment can be that, can't it? Every moment can just be that. Today, yeah. I know it's a really insignificant. Some people it may be insignificant. I walked outside today, and I walked into the park locally, and all the leaves were on the ground, and they were orange and yellow, and it was just breathtaking. And I was really, sometimes a moment in time just affects you really deeply, and it seems so insignificant, and you're surprised by how impactful it is. It was one of those moments. Now, the more of those we can string together, and I'd not done anything significant. The world was just as it was. But it was the presence in that moment that allowed me to see what was going on. Does that make sense? And I think that the more of that presence we can bring to our own lives, the more we'll be able to find that bliss. I genuinely think that.
Yeah, totally agree. And the Joseph Campbell thing, follow your bliss, I think came from his book, The Hero's Journey, which is this lifelong journey that we have to find our purpose and fulfill our potential of really just being ourselves and being in that flow state you talk about. But I really like the angle that you brought today, Sarah, around just having those moments in life and each day doing your next best thing. And I'll end, if I may, with a little pretty flippant example similar to what you were saying about the leaves in the park. Frankie Fine Buys, you know Frankie Fine Buys?
Yes.
Closed down now, sadly. This is a shop in our local village. But I was in there last year and I was feeling particularly chipper, don't know why. And I went in for something like, I don't know, some double-sided sticky tape or something. And I said, "Hello, sir," as I went in, and he's been there forever, hasn't he? And I said, "Do you have any double-sided sticky tape," or whatever it was? And he said, "Yeah, I'll show you where it is." I said, "Of course you do, because you've got everything here, haven't you? You sell everything." And I was just, cheerful with him, and gave him some money, put the change in the charity box, whatever, and said, "Toodaloo, thanks very much." And as I was leaving, he said, "You're very pleasant. Thank you. You've made my day." And I thought, because so many customers will just go in, throw the money at him and go. Just that slightly flippant interaction did something.
Well, I think something with that is, I think this is another thing that we can do is, it's important to see people. And when you see somebody, you have a huge, and that's all you need to do, is really see people. And I think, like you said then about, he said to you, "You're very pleasant," and you've made his day, because we can see people, especially in service industries, they can almost be invisible. But when you see somebody and acknowledge their existence truly, and even if it's only for a fraction of a moment, it's significant. And I think that's the thing about the mum and the children, is seeing them and allowing them to see her in that moment as well, and allowing that allowance of being seen and to see other people. It's a very profound human experience. The more of it we do, the more joy that can bring to our lives. It's just to see other people truly, without judgment, in that place of acceptance, but just to have that fraction of a moment where we see them. And that is an experience in itself, I think.
Yeah, see and be seen, that authentic self again, and validation. Lovely, I've really enjoyed that. Thank you, Sarah.
Nice to speak to you. Take care.
Nice, and yeah, good luck with doing your next best thing and getting the book finished for next week.
Thank you. Take care.
See you soon, Sarah. Bye. So there we go. I'll be happy to hear if you have any comments, any thoughts on that. Maybe you want to take some time to digest it, but I like Sarah's message there. And yeah, that's it for today. If you want to share the group with anyone else, you think, when you were watching today, if you thought, there's some people I know that could benefit from hearing that message, or other messages like it, or some support, or being seen, just share the group link, invite them in, whatever you want to do. And if you feel you have benefited from tonight's session, or the Hive in general, then do feel free to donate some spondoolies. buymeacoffee.com/thrivehive. Thank you very much to all those who have subscribed as members, and for those who drop me a coffee now and again. It's much appreciated. Thank you. I see you. And what else is coming up this week? So tomorrow is Tuesday. That means it's Man Tuesday. If you are a man and you're doing nothing at 6 o'clock, you can come along and be seen and see others as well. And maybe we can talk about purpose. We have a natter. We talk about mental health. We talk about masculinity, life's challenges, relationships, and feelings. And yeah, it's all very friendly and inclusive. So come along if you're a man. The link is probably on the Hive, and if you can't find it, just search Man Tuesday Saddleworth on Facebook and you'll find the link there. Jaffa and Steve are back on Friday with Tools for Living Your Life, and I think I've got a session booked in for next week, but I can't remember who it's with. Oh, it's me! That's why I couldn't remember. Rachel Warren is going to kind of interview me next week on Thursday. So if you have any questions, I'm going to do one of those kind of ask me anything things. So I think we've had 1 or 2 questions submitted already, but if there's anything you want to know about me or the Hive or my outlook on life or whatever it is, or anything that you'd like a bit of support with and you think I may be able to help you, then feel free to message me or message Rachel Warren, and we will cover it. Nothing is off limits. I'm happy to answer any question. And that's it for tonight. So thanks for being with us. Thanks for your interactions, folks, and be well as you navigate towards your purpose if you're not already there. All right, take care. Toodaloo. Bye.